Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Allegiant Health, Bass and Associates, and Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello, welcome back to the Fireside Lounge. It's a little warm today, almost 80 to talk about fire, so let's talk about ice. And I'm not talking the kind that you put in a cold drink. I'm talking about Omaha's Inner City Coalition on the Environment. And with me today are some of the people that make ice happen, certainly not make it melt, right? Barb Hayes is the president of ICE, the Inner City Coalition on the Environment. Also with us, who's on the board, is Dennis Ferraro. Now, these people have other lives too, but Barb works professionally in environmental services. And Dennis Ferraro, you may possibly recognize. He's sort of Douglas County's resident bug man. He deals with the environment from a bug's point of view. He's an entomologist. I want to welcome you here today. This is a relatively new organization. Just a little bit, though, on what you are and why the need.
Actually, we started about 3 years ago, just as a grassroots organization, and NSRA, Nebraska State Recycling Association, helped us organize. But last year, we did file for our 501c3.
So you're a real deal now, a nonprofit.
We are a real deal now. That's right. Whole different ballgame. And basically, when we did start out, it was grassroots, kind of working with neighborhood associations. And I think, like any organization, as you start to evolve, you find a different, you may find a different niche. So a lot of what we do now is our board is made up of people that represent some neighborhood associations, professionals, like Dennis from Extension, Kathleen Q is from Extension.
Douglas County Health Department.
Right, Tom Baker with the Health Department, Mary Irwin with Weed and Seed, Rudy Novacek, who is Mr.
Oh, Mr. Deer Park neighborhood.
Mr. South Omaha. Right. Rudy is I finally say Rudy is my vice. He is the vice president.
He's the dean of, I think, the neighborhood associations. When we say your name, though, we say Inner City Coalition on the Environment. I mean, that covers a broad area. What are we talking about? Making the environment not just the ecological things we think of. Mm-hmm. It's just the total living environment.
Yeah, it's social environment, economic environment, as well as
environment,
right? And we have things that hinge on all that. We do some things with the health department, such as working with the lead working group, and we act as kind of a go-between between different agencies, networking with them and helping them get education to the public in some manners.
Well, I guess the question I ask is, there are so many organizations and there are so many neighborhood groups, some of them very, very, very fine. I've worked with a lot of them. There is the Nebraska State Recycling Association, Health Department. Why is there a need for a specific organization? You said you had to find your niche.
What I see is we do have neighborhood associations over here. We have coalitions that are activist groups that take on a particular issue. We saw a lot of that with the ASARCO issue. A lot of organizations coming out, taking a stand on that. We have government agencies that are also trying to work in community-based areas. What we don't have is a group that can link all those, can bring those people together. Because a lot of times on projects, if you don't have the right people together on the project, your project fails. And we have so many groups, and Omaha is quite diverse in community groups, that not everybody knows about everybody else. So a lot of what we do is this kind of forming partnerships, bringing the right people together to make something work.
Okay,
and that's a niche, I think.
Pick an issue an issue that, well, let's take the lead working group.
I was going to say, yeah.
Okay.
Where do you fit in and how are you helping?
Okay.
I mean, this is serious,
right.
serious issue.
Well, of course, there's a working group made up mainly with the Health Department and EPA ICE helped coordinate that information that comes out of this group with Extension and the people in Extension who go out to teach people about nutrition. Extension has a large number of people who take care of nutrition issues for inner city people, people on WIC, and people getting food stamps. And a big part of keeping lead problems out of the children is their diet. So linking people who know about diets, the dietitians, with the facts about lead and where lead is prevalent in the neighborhoods.
Well, in the county health program.
Right, and the health program links it all together.
And you have an ongoing program even without the concern about the very high levels east of 42nd Street.
Right. We basically partner with, and it's Reed Steincross with Douglas County Health, to help disseminate his program to the community. The EPA-led working group is another group that was formed by Frank Brown originally about a year ago. And
That's Council President Frank Brown.
Yes.
Just in case someone hasn't heard who
yes.
he is.
And there are several agencies represented in that group and a couple nonprofits. ICE is one of those. And then that group is looking at some real broad base programs. And it's doing very well. But where we come in and help county health is actually getting the health department's program to the people now and get these people involved with it. A lot of times groups that are not aware county health has a program.
So you, in a sense, in addition to getting the professionals in touch with the people in the community, I assume just that the issue of whenever there's a project or something to be done, it's a matter of bodies. You can access the neighborhood groups. You can, access people to help bring the awareness up.
And one of the things we did, we had a small booth and we handed all that information about what the health department's doing with lead testing on children.
Because they have a limited number of people.
Right.
Oh,
and so they weren't
absolutely.
able to have a booth at this organization, so ICE was out there and helped disseminate information on testing children for lead that the health department does free of charge.
Does ICE have a lot of members, or do they use the
They have a lot
the
of
people
contacts.
Right.
We're just starting to look at doing a membership drive kind of thing, and it'd be minimal. It'd be $5 for an individual, $5 for a neighborhood association. But most of ours is contacts and a lot of volunteer time. I'll say one thing, my board is a working board. We are out there with these projects. We do a great market sweep every 3 months down in the old market. And I mean, we're there on the streets.
Sweep? When you say sweep, you mean
yeah,
sweep?
literally pulling
We're
beds
cleaning
and
up certain areas of the market on a regular basis now. It's on a Saturday morning. The next one will be June 6th, I think. And we get out there with a group of people that are volunteers. And we do that. We carry garbage sacks around. We pick things up. You know, of course, weird things happen there. We tried to.
Yeah, that's a whole other show.
Well, you came across a bed. You carried the bed
I carried
out.
it.
Carried
Someone's
the
bed was in an
All right,
alley.
what
bed out.
does sweeping, the Scran's monthly sweep of the old market, have to do with, let's say, the lead education?
It's just another
They're not
facet.
related.
Right.
They're
It's
not
just
facet.
another project that
Right.
we do. And part of that is dealing with cleaning up. That got started because of cleaning up illegal dumping. And then we went into this issue at the old market, which is a high tourist area. And there are parts of it that look pretty bad. And there was one time, you came across the case of Kendall Jackson
Oh, yeah.
wine that was in the alley. Well, it was empty, but obviously they didn't have a corkscrew because all the corks were punched down in the bottles.
Then we came across
You know.
a box which was someone's home,
That was.
and we think they were still sleeping in there. So.
They were. They were.
So the idea of what you do, you say you found your niche, but judging from some of your other projects, you have the Lead Committee, which we mentioned, special issue sessions. One of them was methamphetamine.
Yeah, we just
in
did
Omaha.
that a couple weeks ago. Tom Monahan, U.S. Attorney, his office worked with us on that, and Tom spoke to a luncheon group on the problem of methamphetamines in the local area. And we plan to do probably 2 of those a year, special lunches that are addressing some kind of issue. We did one on the Back to the River project, and that was just purely an outcry of people saying they hear all this Back to the River, but they don't know what it is. So, so we'll put on special sessions like that.
One of the things that I've noticed, because one of my beats for a couple of years was environmental issues.
Right.
Is that you mentioned the special interest group with ASARCO, which brought together a couple of organizations, Sierra
Right.
Club primarily, and some others, and yours. But what I'm saying is,
Oh no, we did not get involved in
you
the
didn't get
soccer.
involved in that. So
that was a political hot potato.
oh, right. That's the question I was going to get to. Environment, whether it just be the living environment or the issue of sewers, and we'll get to your involvement with that. Wine bottles in the old market is pretty diverse. It doesn't seem political from what I guess you don't want to be political, but there are times when you can't help but avoid a political fray. So where is ICE going to, how are they going to find their credibility? Because you're dealing with politicians oftentimes, not just the bureaucrats, like the Extension, I mean, I'm not using it in a bad way, the Extension Service, EPA. I mean, you will face political issues if you're really committed to the living environment of the inner city.
We are just as committed to not being an activist group. And I think there's a level of trust that goes with that.
Is that what you're looking for, the credibility and the trust?
And I think we're gaining that. We partnered with the city on the Brownfields grant, of which the city received.
You might want to explain that, because that's not a common term to...
They submitted on a Brownfields grant from EPA to do site assessments down on the riverfront. They did receive that grant a couple months ago. That project is set to start this summer. And ICE was the community-based organization that partnered with the city in the proposal. And so we will initiate the community outreach part of that project and the information and getting the public involved in that project.
And that, I guess I'm not clear on what that project is specifically. It's planning for helping plan for the riverfront, or?
No. The Brownfields project, there are certain sites along the river that have been identified that what's termed around the dock board property. And basically what this grant money will do will allow that property to have what are called site assessments performed on them to see if there's any contamination, that type of thing. And if not, also to help develop a land use plan for that area.
That can become political, though,
Absolutely.
as the riverfront becomes a hotter commodity, and City Hall is primarily the mayor is very sort of protective of who does what. I mean, that's one of his babies.
Right. The city is using a consulting firm, a local consulting firm, to handle that, and then we will be working initially with the consulting firm on that, where it's important from our perspective to make sure that initially this Brownfields project, the community has the right information, does understand what the project is about, has all this is communicated well, because that's where you get into problems, is if people don't understand something, don't receive good information or in a timely fashion, that's where problems arise. And so that's the part that we'll help with initially, is getting an advisory committee together that will work with the consultant then, and getting people involved that have an interest in it. But then ICE
We'll step back.
We'll step back.
We'll get the information to the people, let them make their own decisions.
Do you see yourself take, I think one of the things is that the environment can be political. You say you want to be apolitical, or maybe above the fray is a better way to say it. But these are very important issues. For instance, the whole issue of sewers in North Omaha and how they were ignored for a while, and I don't think anybody can deny that they were, the whole sewer backup problem and everything. That became political at times, but you know, where does somebody, let's just make up a hypothetical, where does someone like ICE get involved? Is it important for you to make sure that the people that make decisions have information they need,
Absolutely.
as well as the public, so that maybe some of the politics and turfdom
On the
can
sewer
stay out of it?
blitz that we did a couple years ago, that started because a lot of neighborhood associations were screaming and yelling and saying, the city doesn't come around and clean out our sewer. And so we said, fine, we'll approach this in a different way. And we said, take photos and submit photos to us with locations. We'll put together a big book and identify these locations and then give it to the city. And it worked out splendidly because the city received that, and within 3 or 4 days after receiving it, every single one of those sites was done. That's all they needed, was some information. Instead of people staying in the community and pointing the finger and complaining and not maybe knowing who to talk to, you know, the city was great. And the next year when we said, do you want to do this again, nobody had any complaints.
So is this the kind
you
of thing
know,
you're talking about in terms of taking a different approach or different look?
Absolutely.
You know, getting strength in numbers without becoming radical or activist.
Right. And one of the other things to do is like the Omaha Parks book, or handbook for the parks. I've been working on that, and so is Barbie and some of the other people, where we're working with the city, coming up with a notebook that has a lot of things about the parks, so people have information about the parks in their area, and those neighborhoods have information about the parks in their area, and things they can do in those parks. We have a section
Maybe
on...
things they can't do?
Absolutely.
Well, both, yeah.
Both.
Well, exactly, yes.
Absolutely.
No,
But-
because
but
I
there-
mean, that sometimes is important in
Right.
feeling comfortable.
Exactly, and it has not only all the fees and what happens in each park, but we have a section on if they want to have like a wildlife attraction area in that park, how they as a neighborhood association or a family can work with the city and have
Gee,
that.
I wonder who wrote that section.
And things like that, and just things that families can do in the park.
Keep Omaha Beautiful, Cindy Smiley's group, is a partner on that project
Yeah.
with us.
This is kind of an interesting concept because as I grew up in this town, it was like the parks are some mystical thing that somebody decides on, and they decide where the roads are going to be. And yet one of your board members is from the Leavenworth Neighborhood Association, and I used to belong to that, and they took a little neighborhood park
Right.
and kind of worked with the city. But a lot of neighborhood groups don't really know things that can be done, or they don't. They're
This-
afraid to ask, or they
That's
don't know who
why-
to ask.
That's why we're
That's why we're
writing
doing this.
handbook, for that exact reason, because information is out there about Parks Department, but it's in 10 million different places. So we're taking all of it and putting it in one handbook. And the initial printing of this handbook, every neighborhood association will receive a copy free. Then it'll be for sale to the public also. But you know, those are the kinds of projects. Central Park Mall, we have a planting project that's been going on down there for 3 years, and it's the big planters around the lagoon by the greenhouse. And the deal was, everyone would steal the flowers, and the city reached a point that they no longer could afford to try and maintain it. So we took that project over, and you know, we plant the end of May, and we go
Put the
down.
padlocks on the plan.
And you know, we water every day, and there's no watering system down there. We have to use, we've got 2 red buckets. We call them Warren and Jimmy bucket. And we have to take water out of the lagoon and, you know, hand water all these things. But it's been a great project because now we're going into the 3rd year, and people who live in the greenhouse are starting to, about mid-May, they start to call and say, when are you going to get the planters planted?
Well, now you
know?
need to recruit some of them.
You know, well, absolutely, and I am, but that, I mean, you end up having these different experiences. One morning I was down there planting, it was like 7 o'clock, and, you know, t-shirt, blue jeans, barefoot, baseball cap, you know. And some kids had left pizza boxes out there the night before. And so I'm standing there, you know, looking in the pizza boxes and, you know, kind of seeing, I don't know why I was looking in them, I was curious. And I was standing right underneath the 10th Street, you know, the bridge that goes over the lagoon area. And a jogger stopped and started to throw me money. And he was telling me, go get a decent meal, you know. And I kept going, well, no, I wasn't going to eat this, you know. I mean, that project's been great.
So you're real hands-on in some ways.
Oh, absolutely.
And yet you're more kind of a community development kind of group
Yes.
than others. I mean, isn't that
Right.
kind of hard to be? I mean, you can't be all things to all people. I mean, you can't. If you develop,
Well, see, we don't get into the politics side of it, so we're not all things to all people.
but as you progress and you get more credibility, people are going to come to you to help the coalesce. You know, things coalesce more, and you may not be able to do that.
Well, we'll give them contacts.
Right.
See, that's
Right.
what we're after.
Because the members of your board are, you know, you've got a metropolitan area planning agency
Yes,
person, health
Bruce Eric
department,
is with
and he's
Method.
wonderful.
Yes.
And you know, all these different kind of resource people. Do people look at that board of directors and maybe you hope future boards and say, you know, this is a place to go for quality of life issues in the inner city?
I think so.
Is that kind of?
Absolutely,
It's like,
I
give us
think
your
so.
issue, we'll see if we what contacts we can come up with for you, and if we can't help you, of course, we'll say that, but if we can, we'll try our best.
Well, so you're 3 years old, and you've got some real hands-on projects. You have some other things you're doing. What next for you? Where is ICE going to form next?
What next? That's an interesting question. I mean, we're evolving.
Right.
And certain things are becoming mainstays with us, you know, like working with Parks Department, who absolutely are great to work with. And in a lot of different areas, we work with them. I mean, we got involved in the Roberts Park skate park, you know, issue. Working with Creighton on trying to develop GIS techniques to do community planning for people.
GIS?
Geographic Information Systems, where, you know, we would collect data, it would go into a GIS format, and it would be available to neighborhoods, you know, but neighborhoods have to do the work. They have to get involved with us. I mean, we're community based. I mean, that will always be there. Our projects might change depending on the need, like the sewer project. We don't do that now because nobody says they need it. So
What do you think? Part of it's that they know that you're there and you would do it again?
they know we're crazy. I mean, there's no doubt about that. They know we're just really nuts. We'll, you know.
We've heard a lot this past week, certainly about taxes in the community because of the countywide upward reassessment and
Right.
the OPS bond issue and everything. But I think one of the things that's that whenever our taxes go up, we tend to depend psychologically more on government. Well, darn it, I'm paying for it. And there has been a real good thrust in the city towards working in neighborhood groups and community groups. Do you find, though, there's still like pulling teeth to get people maybe not involved so much as confident of their involvement, that it will make a difference?
I don't see that it's difficult to get people involved. We have some extremely active neighborhood associations in the city now, over 100 that are active. I see that the bigger issue is they still don't always trust government. I don't blame them.
Well,
I don't blame them. And I think some of that is they don't understand the government environment.
and you working in government, I mean,
Yeah, it's for the
University.
university.
yeah, and you having worked personally with government a lot, you feel that your ace in the hole, or your ice in the hole, is to be that group that knows how to work, not just the contacts, but knows how to
Absolutely.
deal
Right.
with it.
Because that helps, again, bring people together. You can get city parks working with other organizations. You can get public works you know, working with other organizations.
Will people be hearing about ICE more soon as you go to the public asking for memberships? And why would I want to belong
Well,
to your organization when, you know, there are so many other worthy causes fighting out there to get people involved?
I'm not so sure when I said a membership drive that it's going to be.
Well, like general membership in the
I mean,
community.
you know, obviously we'll take donations too, but that the membership thing is not really what ICE is about. I mean, we don't. We're a group that's very diverse that brings people together. So it's not that we have this huge membership, quote membership,
Or that you would need.
Right.
Right. But if someone wants to be more involved or be there, so.
I mean, the opportunity is there. We have that mechanism set up.
Well, the reason I asked you here is because you aren't that well known, but the idea of being this sort of conduit is very intriguing to me. And we may, because of our skepticism of government, I think, and even big corporations, you know, maybe there's a need for this sort of thing. People that we can trust, assuming you'll stay trustworthy.
Yeah, that's our goal.
Well, we worked with Lucent Technologies last summer in putting together a one day that was a large cleanup. And we hit several sites across the city. And Lucent employees, there were probably 60 Lucent employees that were involved in that. And that brought neighborhood associations together with Lucent. You know, and so allowed them to make those contacts, and so now this year they can go directly and work with Lucent, and they don't need us to be that middleman. You know, so
It's like if there's a little bit of fearfulness that they can come to you.
right, absolutely.
Okay.
You know,
Where would people find you? You know, ICE. I'm looking for ICE. Where are they?
oh, I hang out under the bridge down, down in the mall. You know,
Or you see
it's-
us cleaning up the old market.
Yeah.
Who would they call?
You know, we typically put out all our board members' phone numbers, but for a single point of contact, we use mine, which is my business phone number.
Okay, well, just look up
Right.
Hayes Environmental, and you can learn
Right.
more about
Right.
keeping cool in your environment with ICE. I want to thank you very much for being with us today,
Thanks.
Barb and Denny. It's good to have you as always, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
It sounds like a good deal. Thanks a lot, and thank you for joining us today on Consider This.
Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Allegiant Health and Bass & Associates.